Hey everyone, it's BrowncoatNerd, and today we've got a review of the Star Model 28 DA. Now these came out in the Model 28, the Model 30, and the Model 31. Don't ask me what happened to 29, because I do not know. And of course within those they would have had different kind of sub-model categories. This one here is the DA. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot known about this specific model, which of course intrigues me that much more. And this has been safety checked, just in case you're wondering. I've got that safety up so you can see the markings there a little more easily. So what this is, it's actually kind of a cool and interesting handgun here. Now I've seen a lot of people, you see these rails and immediately you're like, okay, this is another CZ75 clone with how the slide kind of attaches to the frame on the inside rather than going on the outside, which is kind of known, very popular today, as kind of, the CZ style slide setup. The CZ75 was not the first gun to do this. It definitely was an early one. It was definitely like the only super successful one too. But this isn't a CZ75 copy. It's actually a copy of the SIG P210 or the M29, and that is a really nice pistol I have envied for a long time now. And they aren't the cheapest guns in the world, and they're not the easiest to find. They're not super rare, but they're highly collectible and they're a bit pricey. And they're great shooters and very accurate. So what Star did is they kind of, they're known for making their copies of the 1911. Got here the Star Model BM, which is kind of the compact 1911. But Stars, whenever you talk about Star, you immediately think of a 9mm 1911 variation. This one's a little bit different. It's the copy of a SIG 210. Now, of course, the SIGs were single stack, whereas this is double stack. And the mags do drop free, as you can see, which is actually kind of surprising because this has a magazine disconnect safety. Decently built mags, nothing special. Does have a metal follower. These are a bit pricey, I will tell you. So I purchased this from AIM. I think I ordered it like the first day the email was out, maybe the second day. I just had a feeling about this gun, and I've always wanted a SIG 210. And I love my Star BM. You guys watch my videos, I've got a bit of a crush on that. And so I decided to jump on this. And this grade sold out pretty quickly. They're kind of grade A or grade 1. But those magazines, I purchased this the first or second day it was out. The magazines that were 40 some odd bucks made me a little hesitant, and then I was like, well, what if the mag I get, the spring's no good? I should, go ahead and get that extra one, even though it's a bit pricey. And so I got online the very next day, and they were already sold out. And I've looked around, and that does seem to be pretty much the going rate of those mags, are between 40 and 50 bucks. And it is a double stack, 15 round, 9mm. So that was kind of a bummer. So after these sold out, the grade 1 or grade A's, they did offer a grade 2 or grade B. I forget how they labeled it. So this one right here, this ran $380. And then they came out with the grade 2, which obviously, more finish wear. And those were $350. And those lasted for like a week or two before they sold out. And this one's in pretty good shape. I mean, it definitely does have some wear on it. But I was expecting it to be a little more beat up than that. And I mean, do you see that beautiful plumb barrel there? Now I understand that is actually, they don't do that on purpose. That's actually a result of the bluing not being the right temperature or something like that. I don't care, because I think it's beautiful. But yeah, going back to it being a copy of the SIG 210, these two lines there, that's for the takedown. This gun's really easy to take down. You just pull the slide back, line up those two lines, and just push this pin out there, which is connected to the mag disconnect. That pops off, and voila, you're done. And that's exactly how the SIG 210 or the M29s were taken down. So I think that's kind of interesting. So let's see, kind of a backstory on this model. Like I said, it's not a CZ75 clone or copy. But the Swiss got a license in 1937 for the rights on the French SACM 1935A pistol. And that basically was the 210. The Swiss, they modified it some. They gave it the kind of reversed rails. I do not believe the French model had that before. The Swiss designed that. And so that's kind of the original heritage. It isn't even back to the Swiss. It goes further back than that to the French. And then the Swiss got a hold of it. They came out with the 210. And I mean, I feel pretty confident in saying that that's probably that SIG 210 or M49 is probably where the CZ engineers got the idea to do that to the 75. So while this isn't, the Star isn't a CZ75 clone or copy, they still do share a very close lineage. You know, of course, they're all, you know, Browning design overall in operation and everything. So, yeah, so there's kind of the total backstory on that. Now, why did Star make this? They started producing these in 1979. They ended with the Model 31, I believe, somewhere between 91 and 94. And then Star closed in 1997, shortly after that. They did come out with a Starfire. I haven't really looked at those closely. It kind of appears to be a smaller, it's basically a commercial market version of these guns. There might be some mechanical differences on that, so I'm not sure, but they have the reverse slide, you know, and they seem to be pretty similar from what I've seen, but I haven't really looked too deeply into those. So these were made from 79 to around 91, 94, ending on the Model 31. The Model 20, they only made 16,000. So that's not really that many when you think about the numbers on the handguns. I looked at, or had my buddy Chuck, big shout out to Chuck, he's got the Bible on Star. He found this book on eBay. It's no longer in print, and it's got tons of information you cannot find online. I think for most of the Star handguns, he can look at the serial number and like determine exactly what year and you know, what police force it was issued out to, and all kinds of really cool stuff. He's got access to numbers. So when I ordered this, I was all excited, you know, told him about it, and he reminded me he had that book. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to get so much information on this. Interesting thing though. Okay, so they only made 16,000 of the Model 28s, and like I said, there's, you know, little subcategories in those. This is the Model DA. Now, I have no clue what the exact number on these are, because in that book, the Star Bible that Chuck has, the serial numbers are in the millions. And you can see there I'm missing a digit. So we're really not sure what's going on with that. But long story short, I feel pretty confident in saying there's not a whole lot of these out there, let alone especially in the US. So, you know, that's just kind of cool as far as collectability. So yeah, we couldn't determine exactly how many of these were made. Another thing too, and I wish I had saved this screenshot. Okay, so it's Model DA. When I saw this on AIM, I was somewhat familiar with these, mostly because I really wanted a SIG 210. And I saw it was DA, and I was kind of bummed out. I was like, you know, I'm not a big fan of double action guns. I do have one. It's that SIG P226 with the double action Kellerman trigger. I bought that gun completely planning on actually changing that out to standard double action, single action. You know, and you guys know I don't like to change my surplus guns. I like to keep them all original, even if it's a simple fix. But after having that double action, it's such a weird trigger. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a double action trigger pull. You're pulling the hammer back every time you're pulling the trigger, but there's still two different trigger weights. It's really weird. If you're not familiar with them, or if that sounds interesting to you, go check out my video on that. So just because of that uniqueness, I decided to go ahead and keep that one. That is the only reason I have a double action only firearm in my collection. I prefer double action, single action, or single action only. I'm not even a big fan of striker fire. I'm not saying they suck, you know, but I just prefer to have that kind of, you know, nice light mechanical feel of a single action trigger. That's my preference. So when I saw this double action, I was bummed out, but I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure the double action just adds to the uniqueness of that model, which, you know, it does. And so I went ahead and ordered it. Looking back, I am not sure if AIM ever said this was double action only, or if they simply listed it as DA, and me thinking in gun terms, I'm like, okay, it's double action only. The reason I'm saying that is because it's not double action only. It's double action, single action, which is perfectly fine with me. That made me very happy. So, like I said, all these guns out here have been safety checked. I took pictures of this at the gun store. And, I filled out the paperwork on it. Took some pictures, went home. And then I'm looking at the pictures, and I had the hammer back in the pictures, and I'm like, oh, hold up, that's not kosher. There's something going on there. And so I was a little nervous, but I've taken this out and shot it. It is a beautiful double action, single action trigger. I cannot believe how smooth this was. Now, I do have that Lyman trigger pull gauge, and I remember to actually test it before I did this video. I keep forgetting that. Sorry, guys. So the trigger, where are we at? The double action pull on it was 4.4 pounds. I mean, I've been using that trigger pull gauge on like the newer handguns I'm getting when I remember. I haven't tested all my handguns. I feel like that sounds like that's a pretty light double action pull, and it feels like it. The single action is 1 pound, 7 ounces, which is god-awful light. Oh my god, it is so beautiful. It is so crisp. And the take-up on it is just super short, but it's just... Here, I'm going to put the camera down. I want to show you guys the reset here. Okay. I'm going to just reset out. I mean, it's got a little bit of reset, but it is not much. And then just a super light single action trigger pull. And when the hammer's down, if you do pull back on the hammer a little bit or on the trigger, you will see it kind of pops in that, I wouldn't call that a half cock position, but I would imagine this is how they'd be trained to carry it, with the hammer recessed off that firing pin and the safety down. Now, we're going to talk about the safety because it's cringeworthy. Why is it cringeworthy? Okay, so safety on, safety off, red is dead. Safety on. It's not broken. That's actually how it's designed. You will still pull the hammer. There's no disconnect or anything on it. There's not really a block. Instead, what it does, if you look at that firing pin, let me try to get an angle. When I put the safety on, that firing pin is going to go inside the slide just a little bit. And then the idea is, okay, so the safety's on now. That hammer drops. It's not actually making any contact with that firing pin. And when you take the safety off, you'll see it come up a little bit. So now it's exposed for the hammer to hit it. So that's just kind of a little ugh about it, and you shouldn't be pulling the trigger when the safety's on. You never should rely on a safety. It is mechanical. It will break. Your number one safety is your finger. But it's just one of those kind of weird, unique things to this. And, just one more reminder to, always rely on your finger for the safety. Now, I will say when I first got this gun, when I first took it out shooting, the very first thing I did was I loaded it, chambered around, I flicked that safety on so the safety was engaged, pointed it downrange, and I shot it. And it did not fire, so... there's a few guns I do purchase that I do that on. I guess really I should probably do that on all guns, but like I said, it's not like I'm walking around pulling the trigger when my safety's on. You never have your finger on the trigger unless you're actually wanting to fire. But certain guns I feel kind of pushed to actually test the safety. So this was one of those guns, and it passed. So yeah, just a little interesting thing on that safety. Now, the beaver tail on this is probably the ugliest beaver tail in any gun I've ever seen. It's just like hacked out of a block of steel. And this is a steel frame. So this gun's got some heft to it. Now, holding this, and kind of feeling it, it's not like I'm like, oh my God, it's so heavy. And I got dainty little wrist, So if anyone's going to feel it, it'd be me. It doesn't feel that heavy. And then when I go over to the Beretta 92, I pick this up. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's yeah, that's definitely lighter, but it's not like, oh my God, what a difference, you know? It's like, yeah, no, this is lighter. And yeah, this is heavier. It doesn't feel in your hands like a huge difference. And once again, with the extra weight of this, you know, it's kind of helping eat up that recoil a little bit more. Now, later on in the series, I don't know if they offered this on the 28 or if it was just on the 30 and 31, but they did offer an alloy frame option. They didn't switch over to it completely. It was just kind of an option if you wanted. And they also offered some of them with a shorter slide and barrel. So those are out there as well. I wouldn't mind finding one and trying to, you know, it'd still be kind of big, but see if I could use that as a carry gun, because I have fallen in love with this little pistol here. And like I said, you know, the serial number, we're not really sure what year this was made, but some of the other features with the help of Chuck, this is definitely an early model, because as you can see on that trigger guard, it's curved out like they're starting to do right about that time period. This Breda 92S does not have that. Now, the very next model of Breda 92, they did put that on there. And of course, the original 75s didn't have that. This is a new production 75, and it does. And of course, it's got some texture on there. The thing that kind of caught me off guard when I very first picked this up, there's no texture. I don't know if I've ever seen an angled trigger guard that has no texture. And I'm sure they're out there. I'm, you know, sure there's a lot of companies doing that when they first were kind of doing that to the trigger guard. But I just kind of thought that was interesting. And of course, the front and the back straps are smooth, and that's pretty normal of the time. You know, the 92S is the same way. But they did add some, you know, serrations, or, you know, they did something to the finish to add some grip there on the later models. So that's one more sign that this definitely was a early production, because it doesn't have any of those. I'm totally brain farting. Sorry, guys. All I can think is grippy surfaces, lines. Yeah. Also, the rear sight is the older style. The older ones have a screw to adjust your windage there. The later ones do not. I'm not really 100% sure what the later ones look like. I just know that they do not have that screw. I would imagine they're still windage adjustable. But there is a difference on that. And as you can see, that screw is also kind of plumbed out with the bluing along with that pin there. And the sights are pretty nice. You know, for a surplus gun, they're actually really good. My one complaint is this front sight. I just kept losing it on my target. You know, of course, my target was a black silhouette. I wish I could find some that were white silhouettes, because, well, all my sights are black, and I just, you know, start to lose them. And I felt so even more with this one. You know, but I just took my time, and this was a very accurate gun for me, guys. I was very happy. But I'm really tempted to paint that front sight. But once again, even though it's just paint, I could take it off. I like to keep these original, you know, or, you know, when I'm lucky, you know, like this, the Breda 92, I got it, fell in love with it. I wanted to tinker with it, but I was like, oh, I don't want to touch it. It's all original. The action just feels like glass. So, you know, I just bought another one, and then, you know, tinkered around and played with this one. I'm still working on that. So I kind of do wish I went ahead and got one of the grade 2s of these when they were available, but, you know, oh well, it is what it is. This gun's fine. I absolutely love this gun. But we do have some serrations on the top of the slide here to help cut down with glare. And you can see that that's actually a loaded chamber indicator. It barely indicates. I mean, it barely sticks up at all. So just know it's not a very noticeable loaded chamber indicator, but it does pop up a little bit. We have the world's largest extraction claw. I mean, freaking look at that thing, man. I don't know why it's so big. I'm pretty sure the SIG had a long one, but it was shorter. And I do think they shortened this up too on the later models. I don't know if it's the 30 or 31, but I'm pretty sure they shortened that up. I mean, that's gargantuous. We do have ambidextrous safety, which is kind of nice. Now, I've always felt like I was never a big fan of slide safeties. And then I got the Breda 92, and I was actually surprised with how little this bugged me. It really didn't get in the way at all. But, I mean, look at the amount of real estate on this slide right there for you to grab a hold of. Look at the real estate we're working with on this thing. This shite. CZ75 style frame. I do have a pad underneath here. That sure got it good. So the slide mounted safety on this thing I absolutely hate. It gets in my way, especially when the safety is off. I mean, they just dig into your fingers. They're no fun. I found the most comfortable way to rack this slide is with the safety engaged. I kind of use both of those safety arms as, you know, my caulking surface there. But yeah, I really don't like it. I think on all of these, they are slide mounted safeties. I think on the what was that? The Starfire. I think those do have a frame mounted safety, but that gun's changed up quite a bit from this. So you're going to be kind of stuck with these, which is a pain in the butt. And the reason for that, I was getting ready to get on this, but I never did because I got sidetracked. Imagine that. The reason Star made these was so they can enter it into the JSAAP trials for the new U.S. Military sidearm. And of course, we all know that Beretta eventually won that. But that's why they entered this, kind of why they designed this and entered it in and had the slide mounted safety. I do believe that was one of the requirements from the military for whatever reason. And while I'm thinking of it, fun little side story. Ian from Forgotten Weapons actually has a pretty cool video on this. There's not a whole bunch of videos on these. I don't remember if they had model 28, 30, or 31s. But Colt actually purchased several of these, I believe 30, with the idea of getting a license from Star for Colt to make those in the U.S. under their own name and brand, which I think is pretty interesting. Now, obviously, they never ended up going through those. They decided not to do it for whatever reason. But just kind of show you that this is a really good firearm. You know, Colt came really close to doing that. And then, of course, in the Forgotten Weapons video, you can see that after they decided they weren't going to do it, they sold those Stars that they had purchased off to their employees. And so a few of these will have the, you know, it looks like a Colt import mark. I'm sure that's essentially what it is. So that's pretty interesting. So if you do find one of these that has that Colt import mark, know that is going to, you know, kind of demand a little more of a premium. I think they only imported 30 of them, and they've got a really cool backstory. While we're on import marks, thank you for making that not a giant billboard. I mean, look at that. It's blasphemy. Now, this one has a serial number on it, so I'm not sure if that means that these were imported earlier, if, you know, they've just been sitting around. My understanding, and I might be completely wrong because I do not have a big understanding on this, is that right now, if you were to import a handgun, the importer would have to put on their own unique serial number just to ensure, because some of these companies that made these guns, especially Surplus, their serial numbers were not consistent. And, you know, there was a possibility to have multiple of the same serial number. So just the lack of that, I'm not sure if that means, you know, this has been imported for a while or why there's no serial number. Either way, it's a nice small import mark, and it makes me happy. And those import marks will change quite a bit. Let's see, on my Beretta here, that one's really not all that bad. You got PW arms right along the slide. They do not have their own serial number. And then exact same gun, different importer. They actually put on the bottom of the dust cover, which is even better. So just in case anyone's watching this and they're kind of new to imports, that's what I'm talking about there. And then, of course, this one, which I'm pretty confident was been imported fairly recently, and that's why it has their serial number. I think I've even seen someone say that they're actually required to have like the text a certain size, and so like I don't know if they could get away with those small ones now, which really sucks because, you know, these guns come in, for the most part, we want them as collectors, and then you do crap like that and just it mucks it up, which is unfortunate. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked again. So that's why this gun was developed, was initially to be the future sidearm of the U.S. military, which, you know, it's kind of cool. Obviously, it lost to Beretta. The grips, these grips are actually kind of designed after the plastic or rubber grips that the SIG had on it. On the Star model, it has just kind of a checkered insert, Where on the SIG, you know, you don't have a border here of smooth. It's just checkered throughout, and of course it does not have the Star logo on the SIG. But you'll also have these horizontal lines on the back. So I think it's kind of interesting how Star really closely mimicked the SIG grips. Later on, they changed out to hard, Star changed out to hard black rubber grips. And those did away with the horizontal lines. And those just had kind of a stippling all over the entire area. I believe they still have the Star logo, but I don't think you had this border anymore. So cosmetically, you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But overall, I'm sure they felt a lot better than this when you have a lot more grippy surface. Speaking of grippy surface, this thing looks ugly as hell. It looks like, when I first saw it, I'm like, this thing's going to feel like I'm just holding a brick of metal. It actually feels really nice, guys. Surprisingly so. And like I said, when I took it out and shot it, I was very impressed with how smooth it felt. And I was really accurate. I was really on point that day. And I owe it all to this guy here. So this can fit a couple of notches if you're a collector, if you like collecting, you know, military surplus. I do believe I read somewhere that the Model 31 is still in use with some of the Spanish armed forces. So this would fall under that category. And just so I know, I don't believe any of these M31s, M30s, and M28s were offered on the commercial market. So I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but if you find one of these, I believe it's guaranteed to be police or military surplus. I don't believe they're ever offered to the civilian market brand new. So this would fit a surplus collector. If you collect all the guns that were in the JSAAP trials, this would fit for you. If you're a SIG fan, you know, who doesn't like the 210? This is the poor man's 210 without a doubt. Plus you get higher mag capacity as a SIG is just single stack. So this would fit in that notch. If you love collecting stars and you're starting to get a little tired of a 1911, congratulations, this is not designed off of the 1911. This is, you know, well, you know, everything owes its roots to the 1911, I guess, pretty much. But anyhow, so this fits a lot of collectors' niches, if you will. And this one, guys, lately I've been torn between my SIG 226, even though it has a double action trigger, and my CZ75 as to which one is my favorite. And this, did I do a video on this? Yeah, I did a video on this. This was my first, like, quality handgun. Now I'm saying that this is super high quality. It's just your standard 75B. And in 40 Smith & Wesson, nonetheless. I'm sure a lot of people hate that. But this was, like, my first real decent handgun I had purchased. Before that, I had a Smith & Wesson, what was it, SEDE 40, whatever replaced the Sigma. And to that gun's credit, it was a cheap gun. I bought it brand new, I think for $350. I think you can get them cheaper now. It's a copy of a Glock. To that gun's credit, I never had any jams with it, and I shot it a bunch. This was when I first got into shooting, but it just wasn't very accurate. And a buddy of mine had a CZ P07, which is now in my collection, and I was lighting S up with that gun. So I'm like, okay, I need to upgrade guns. So his brother actually sold me this. I really can't remember how much for. I think around $400. But this was like my first quality handgun, and taking it out, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm, you know, more accurate with this than that SDVE, the value enhanced, whatever it stood for. So, you know, this and that SIG 226, sorry, I don't have it out here. You know, I've even had people ask me which one's better, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like, which child do I love more, you know? But I don't care about any of my kids anymore. No. This Spanish beauty right here has taken my heart. And I have to say, you know, typically whenever I get a new handgun, that's my favorite gun for the week, you know, regardless of what it is. Ooh. I want to see what beats this gun out of being my favorite handgun. And I know there's, you know, newer quality guns out there, more refined. People are going to laugh at me because this is very rudimentary looking, but oh man, when you hold it and you aim down range with it, it is a, oh, it's a cherry to shoot. So if you guys see one of these, I highly recommend you jump on it. And like I said, I paid $380 for this one. They did offer some grade 2s for $350. I was talking to a guy online. He bought his Model 28, and it came with the original box, not the manual, from Southern Ohio Gun. I think he said it got 2 or 3 years ago, and he said it was on sale. I think he paid like $280 for his, though. But, you know, of course, that was a couple years ago, and the prices have been crazy lately on surplus. This is the gun I see going up even more. Like I was telling you guys about my buddy Chuck, I kind of felt bad. So I was showing him pictures of this gun, and, you know, mentioned it was a essentially a SIG 210 clone or copy, variation of, however you want to word it. And he was kind of like, damn, I didn't realize that, you know? Because he told me he saw these when they popped up on AIM, and he kind of thought about it. And then, you know, I was like, hey, look what I ordered. And we were talking about it, and I can't remember who, but, you know, the fact that they had grade 2s now available kind of came up. And I could kind of tell he was like, should I jump on it? And, you know, I was talking to him a little while ago when we were trying to figure out the serial number. And I think that's when he was like, yeah, I think I should have ordered one. He had no clue it was a SIG 210, and I don't think a lot of people do. And it really shows on this side, like I said, with those lines there. I think the price is going to go up once people realize this. Now, they did, I don't know if it was in the 28. I do know they offered it in the Model 31, maybe the 30 as well. But they do have Target versions of these as well. And like those have a little bit of a lightning cut here. It kind of makes it look a little more SIG-esque. They have better sights. I'm sure they've done something to the grip angle to improve it. So this isn't even like the shooty shooter of the group. You know, this is just kind of your entry-level standard weird oddball with DA. And like I said, I assumed that meant this was going to be double action only when I purchased this, but looking back, I'm not sure if AIM necessarily specifically said double action or if they just said DA. And you will notice, yes, it says SA there, but that's just the manufacturer name. Let me try not to look with my camera. Yeah, it's on the this guy here too. That's just part of the star name. That's not saying single action or anything like that. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, you know, I'm pretty confident. I don't know Espanol very well. I'm pretty confident that double action probably does not begin with a D and an A in Spanish. So that probably stands for something completely different. It's interesting how the serial numbers deviate from all of the other guns in the 28 series, though. So if anyone's got any information on that, you know, let me know. Did you buy one of these from AIM? Is yours double action only? And if not, oh, what a sweet trigger. So yeah, some things that kind of confuse me there. Hopefully someone out there might know, or hopefully as more of these get imported, you know, we'll get a little more information with them as well. Also, if you buy one of these, just keep in mind those mags. They are not cheap. And once again, I'm surprised this dropped free with having that mag disconnect safety. See there, now the hammer won't drop. But yeah, these mags are not cheap. So just keep that in mind too. And oh man, when I bought that mag, it was completely caked with grease. I mean, I could have stored 3 SKSs with the amount of grease that was inside of that, which is good because I didn't want that spring to be bad, considering they're $40 to $50. So I didn't mind that it took me longer to clean out the magazine than the gun itself. Outside the gun, there wasn't a whole bunch of grease. There's a little bit caked back here inside the frame. Other than that, it wasn't too bad at all. But yeah, if you guys like good guns, buy this. Okay, you see me go on and on about how much I love the Star BM. I don't even think about it anymore. Now I don't even think about the CZ. It's all you, baby. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Stay shiny.